Coming here to Wells actually is there's people in my church that have been here before. They've been 2 other summers, and just being able to hear their testimony about everything that's happened here and the way that it's affected their lives sparked an interest for me to come as well. So I signed up for the Llithfaen project, knowing somewhat what I'd be doing, but not entirely sure. And so that's what brought me here. And since I've been here, we've been in Llithfaen for about a week, which is where I'm living. And a lot of what we do focuses on building relationships with people. I came through the Celt organization, which does a Christian cultural exchange, and we learn the language of the nation in which we would be staying. So while I'm here, I'm learning Welsh, and I'm trying to speak to people in their home language in order to establish that deeper connection. And through those relationships and those connections, we're trying to spread the gospel and tell people about Jesus and stuff. Those that might not know or that have never even been in a chapel. So that's the purpose of why I'm here and a little bit about how I got here.
Come and sit down. And the reason for doing that at this stage is that we need to think about walking in other people's shoes. We need to think about what it's like not being us.
What I hope to achieve here in Llithfaen, basically I'm hoping to build relationships with people, to create new relationships with people that I haven't ever met before, and use that as a means to show God's love, like while building these relationships, show God's love to them. And also in this, allow these people to build more connections with the people who are here and are followers of Christ, so that maybe they can learn more about God and to learn more about His love for us and what He did for us through His Son to save us from our sins. So.
On Friday night, we got to do a little bit of live theater. We got to do a production of the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal. It was really neat because we all got to get dressed up in different costumes and act out the story. The story was in Welsh, so that was really neat because we didn't understand everything, but we were still able to participate and still understand the Bible story. So that was really cool how we got to kind of cross that language with the Bible as the common ground. Saturday afternoon, it was a really beautiful day. The sun was shining and the temperature was really nice, so we got to hang out in the park for a while. A group of us Americans got to teach some of the Welsh children how to play American football. That was really cool because a lot of them had never played it before. We also got to do different crafts and things like that. We made loom bracelets, and several of them got matching ones, so that was really cool how I got to join together in that. We also did some face painting. We had different flowers and different symbols that were all over people's faces and arms. We also had the experience of getting to learn how to play cricket. That's something that we don't play in America, so it was really cool to learn how to do that. And then Peter and Elizabeth acted out the story of Jesus and the woman who washed his feet with her hair. It was, again, all in Welsh, so it was really interesting to join together. Even though the story was in Welsh, we were still able to understand because it was from the Bible. So that was a really neat experience of how we got to each teach each other something in that. And then last night, we got to do a treasure hunt all over the area. We were given several clues on a piece of paper, and we were supposed to go around and find different spots. and answer questions. And so we got to go up in a mountain area and see some really pretty views that we don't have in America, so that was a really neat experience. It was beautiful. It was the perfect day for it. We all got to get in different teams, and we got to know people a little bit better that way and get to know the area. And then once we came back, we got to have a little bit of a cookout and had some hamburgers and just got to hang out with each other. So it was a really good experience.
We want to hear a little bit about how you found the treasure that Gwyn's been talking about. That is the Lord Jesus Christ in your own life. Could you perhaps start by telling a little bit about your background? You were brought up whereabouts in America?
I'm from Texas.
Yes.
So, yes.
And for the first few years of your life, you lived there with your...
With my dad. Do you want me to give a little context there?
Yes,
okay.
do.
So my parents were together before I was born, and they weren't married or anything, but they were together, weren't planning on having kids. They were in a pretty rough lifestyle. My dad's a pretty hardcore biker, or was at the time. Still rides motorcycles, Harley, obviously. So, but at the time was into a lot of really heavy, just bad activity and a lot of drugs and things like that. And so when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, my dad kind of felt the Lord speaking to him and leading him to follow him. And so before I was even born, my dad decided that he needed to follow Jesus. And then right after I was born, my mom left and kind of pursued a lifestyle of drugs and just illegal activity and things like that. So that's kind of where it started.
So you were never brought up by your mother at all? It was by your father?
Just by my dad.
From the word go. That's an experience. And was it just you and your father at home?
It was. I have some older siblings, but they lived with their mom. They're significantly older. My oldest sister is 16 years older than me. So it was just me and him growing up. So
what were your experiences then in growing up there? And you said your father had come to follow Jesus.
Yes.
So did he tell you about it from an early age, or how did that work?
Well, my house was a bit unorthodox, I think, just kind of a little bit different than a lot of people. I didn't know that at the time. My dad would paint motorcycles outside, in his shop outside, and would come in and sand them in our sink in the kitchen, and I thought that was normal. But with Jesus, I think I was really blessed because my dad, I grew up knowing about Jesus the way you would grow up knowing about a family member. My dad knew him and he talked about him a lot, and so it was kind of like Uncle Jesus that my dad always talked about. And I know that my dad it wasn't ever a sit down and this is about, he never talked to me about Jesus. He talked to Jesus and let me see him do that. And he lived with Jesus and he let me see it. He never told me what to do or how to do it, but I grew up just seeing that my dad loved Jesus and that he had changed his life. And I knew, my dad was always really open with me about his life before, so I knew what my dad was and I knew who he is now. And so I grew up kind of learning about Jesus the way you would, just really naturally with a friendship or with someone, and I knew that I wanted to know him too, and I wanted to have what my dad had, I guess.
But were there any specific steps in this in your life?
There are a few steps. There wasn't ever really a day where I just woke up and was I'm going to follow Jesus. I think that early on, like I said, I wanted it because that's what I saw with my family, with my dad, and so I think I wanted it just because of that. It was this really cool thing that had changed my dad's life, and I understood Jesus. I understood that he had died for me, and that he had forgiven my sins and had rose, and I got the concept of that, I think, but I just did it. I meant it when I did it, but I was I want to follow Jesus because I want that friendship and I want that peace. And so early on, it was just being involved that way. And then the older I got, there were a few pivotal, really important steps. When I was 15, I found out that I had cancer in my bladder. And that kind of shocked me because I really didn't understand that. I've never really been around anyone sick at such a young age, so I didn't really know what that looked like. It was everything was going well when it happened, and so it wasn't I found God because I'd been straying away before, and then I had cancer. And no, I think I was pretty trying to do what he wanted me to do the whole time through. So that really was hard for me to understand why he would put me through that. And then I was sick for about 5-6 months, and toward the end of that, we were supposed to go in. I had 4 surgeries in the meantime. and it was a tumor in my bladder, and they were removing parts of the tumor, and finally they got to where they were like, okay, we're going to remove all of it, but first we want you to come in and do some like pre-operational stuff. So we're going to look at it and see where it is and make sure we know what we need to do. And it was within the next 2 days they were going to operate. Well, we went in and we had the x-rays and had all the like pictures and stuff, and we could see where it was, and they started doing the scans and stuff. And they went, and the woman who was doing the x-ray like went and came back, and she's like, I have to go get the doctor. And the doctor comes in and basically says, Ms. Fix, we can't operate because there's not a tumor anymore. And I was like, okay, wow. And I think God at that point was like, not only do you want me, but you need me. You have to have me. And I think that I went through that not because I was far away from him, but because I was near him, I think for the wrong reasons. Because even though I'd been through a lot with my mom, and she came in and out of my life a bit, just would show up every now and then, and I kind of struggled with contentment and like feeling like I was needed and wanted. I think even still I had really not had a big dependency because my dad was amazing, and so I could pretty much depend on him for stuff. I couldn't depend on my dad to heal me from a tumor. He didn't have that power. He could do everything he could to make me comfortable, but he couldn't do that. And so I think when that happened, I knew that like only God could do that. He was the only person or the only being who was able to do that. So.
Right. So where do you think you are at now? Anything to add on to that?
Yeah, there are a few things, I guess. But after that happened, like I said, I was obviously very thankful, and I don't know, I still kind of had this, even though I'd been healed of something really amazing, and I look back and think like, obviously God has to have a purpose because he doesn't just do that stuff for no reason. I struggled with, like I said, with my mom, I struggled with contentment and like feeling like I was wanted. Because basically the life she had chosen was, my dad even gave her the option when she went to prison and she came back out, and dad was like, you can have your family or you can have your drugs, and my mom picked the drugs and she left. And I think I just always kind of grew up, obviously I knew I was loved by my father and by God, but it was one of those, like, I almost feel like it was an obligation, like they had to do it. My dad was taking care of me, so obviously he had to love me. So I think that I struggled for a long time with feeling, wanting to feel needed, and to feel not only needed, but to feel wanted, and like I was of value. And so I think I looked for a lot of other places to find value. I looked to people to find value. I looked to my status and who I was as a person and how I presented myself. That's where I found value. And God, in a very real way, my first year of uni kind of brought that crumbling down. I spent a long time kind of building up walls because I was like, oh, if I never let anyone in, then I won't get hurt, which is true, but also you're isolated and you end up hurting yourself. You may not get hurt by someone else, but in the long run, it hurts yourself. And so God very much broke that down in me through a series of events, and called me to just be vulnerable with people and to be honest with them and open with them and to be intentional with people. And basically in telling me that was saying, Harley, if you're open with people and you're real with them, they'll be real with you. And I'm not a God who's for fake people. I'm a hospital for the sick. And you've been there. And so basically invited me to come and eat at his table, and then invited me to go get other people to come join me. And obviously I'm not perfect with that. God, in a very beautiful way, has led me to Wales the past few years, and is leading me for a little bit longer term this time, which is really neat to get to see that. And I think that's a big thing too, as far as reliance on getting here, because really I just fill out the application and show up.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
You don't want to answer it, it's fine. It's quite personal, I think.
Go ahead.
It's clear that your mother, was not what mothers were expected to be. Mm-hmm. What should they be?
Sure.
Are you in any sort of relationship with her now? And have you found it possible to forgive her in your heart for not being the mother she should have been?
Yes, I can answer that. That doesn't bother me. I actually went to see my mother probably maybe 6 months ago. She's in prison again. I'm 21. I'll be 22 in October, and she's probably been in prison the last, overall combined, probably about 18, 19 years of my life. So as far as a relationship, I couldn't have much of one. And when I was younger, I think I was really angry because it was like, well, why did she pick that over me? Why why is she not here? My dad could stop. Why couldn't she stop? And I think I was in secondary school, I guess the age of like sixth form, college age, about 18 or so. And I was talking to my dad about it once, and he said, he was like, I love you, and I would do anything for you, but I didn't stop because of you. I didn't change my life because of you. He said, I couldn't have done that. I'm not strong enough for that. He's like, I changed my life because God helped me change it. I think that was big for me because I think that brought a lot of forgiveness because my mother doesn't know the Lord, and so I can't expect her to do something that humans a lot of times don't have the power to do. I was asking her to do something that's basically impossible without God. And I think that led to a lot of forgiveness when I could look at it and say, okay, like this is not you, this is your humanity, this is your flesh, and you don't have God, so there's no way you can overcome flesh without him. So we do talk. She knows I'm here, and she's really supportive of that in a weird way, even though she doesn't really completely understand why I'm here. So yeah, it led to a lot of forgiveness. I try to talk to her when I can, but it's a bit difficult, but yeah.
I hope to come back to visit the village of Llithfaen because it's so warm, welcoming. I hope that whenever I do come back, that the growth in the Lord has just grown so much from the people that work in the chapel. They've been so lovely to us Americans. So I hope in the future, and I pray that God will just do so much work here in this village.